Welcome and namaste. So today we're going to engage in the yin yoga practice. So yin yoga is based in the Taoist tradition, 5-element theory, not the Vedic tradition like our hatha yoga practices. So it's very different. We use different names for some shapes that you'll recognize from your hatha yoga practice, and it's very reliant on lots of props. So be sure you have plenty of props on hand. The other thing that I want to add is now that we're in the autumn season, at least here in New England, it's starting to get a little bit chillier in the morning, in the days. So in yin yoga, we don't produce any of our own heat. So I highly recommend that you dress warmly enough so that you don't get chilled in your yin practice. The yin is a very meditative practice. It draws our attention inward with every shape, long held and fully supported shape. So we'll begin in a child's pose. So as you sit back towards your heels, you may find that some support underneath the front of the ankles, rolling up the end of your mat would feel nice on your feet. You might find that you need to sit on something to fill the gap between the hips and the heels. However much height you use in your hips, I would encourage you to consider using the same amount of height to support the whole of the torso. So that, in other words, if the hips are quite elevated, that you're not then in the nosedive in your child shape. So take a moment to let the knees grow a little bit wide, and then slowly walking your hands forward. You want to very slowly approach your edge. A longer held, less sensational shape is more beneficial than a highly sensational shape that you can't tolerate for very long. And as you come forward, the idea in the yin practice is to support yourself completely. So we're not trying to get to the props, but we want to use the props to bring the earth to us. So I feel like I could use some support for my chest, my torso. So I'm going to fold up some blankets and rest my chest and my head here. You might find that a bolster or maybe the blankets with an additional block toward the front to support the head would be helpful. So again, not trying to get to the props, but bringing the props to meet you right where you are. And then taking the first minute or so to really refine and settle in to a perfectly comfortable, completely supported shape. So what makes yin practice yin is the absence of muscular effort to sustain the shape. Muscular effort and strength in that way is a yang energy. So yin is to let go of all contraction of the muscles, to be completely supported by the props so that you're not hovering or hanging unless you intend to. So in yin yoga, we find that we'll experience one of two things at our joints or attachments, and that's compression or traction. Compression is when you bring one bone closer to the other, and traction is when you draw them away from one another. So we're looking to experience both. One may be a little bit stronger than the other. But if one side of a joint is in compression, then the other side is in traction. And when you notice that you have found that optimum shape where the body can soften and relax, you begin that deeper dive inward field of sensation that is your body. And begin to deepen the breath and quiet the mind, turning your attention and awareness inward. Noticing what you feel. Noticing the quality of the sensation. If you feel numbness or tingling, sharp or shooting pain, then that's the body's way of telling you that you need to make an adjustment, no matter how small or big. We do not want to tolerate numbness or tingling, sharp or shooting pain. We're looking for a position that is uncomfortable, but only mildly so. Uncomfortable to the point where we're putting healthy stress on the tissues, not that unrelenting stress that causes disease and destruction, breakdown of the body, but a healthy amount of stress that will build strength, mobility, flexibility, endurance, and increase our hydration of the tissues. So yin yoga requires a higher level of sensitivity. Really come to know yourself intimately through this practice. So you use the inhalations to spread the consciousness through the body. And the exhalations to soften something somewhere. Anything, anywhere. And as you settle into this shape for just a few more minutes, consider this poem by Danna Fogg titled, Let Go of Something. And she writes, let go of something somewhere. Use yoga to become aware, to touch what lies beneath the surface of the skin. Is there tension, longing for release? A knot of fear so deep and familiar that you believe it's part of who you are? Ease into dark corners, locked rooms, unexplored hallways. Gain entry not by force or will, but only by softness. Enter on the wings of breath and turn the key of self-acceptance to let go of something somewhere. Each and every exhalation is an invitation to soften and let go. Stay with yourself. When you notice your mind has wandered, refresh the shape with a nice deep breath and come back home. And every time you come home to a warm welcome. Even if you have to do it 100 times, it's okay. There is no shortage, no limit to the number of times that you can come back home and begin again. Just a couple more nice, slow, steady, deep breaths here. When the time comes to release the shape, it's imperative that you release very slowly and that you use the strength of the arms or the legs to draw you out of the shape. So at any point now, when you decide you're ready, just because I'm issuing the invitation doesn't mean that you need to come. You could stay in this shape for the full duration of the practice, and that would be brilliant, if that's what your body feels as though it needs. So when you decide you're ready, use the strength of the arms with a heavy tail and a light heart. Slowly press yourself up. After a long held shape, the body is in a fragile position. So you want to be sure that you move slowly, gingerly, and sensitively. And then rising up, take the feet to one side and the hips to the other side. And then let the legs come forward and pause for just a moment. Let the legs relax and lean back on your hands in a nice neutral shape when you're just feeling the release of the long held shape. Feeling that some energy meridians are now open and flooded, and some are pacified and calm. We're balancing the energy fields through the body. And then when you decide you're ready, you'll bend the knees and take the feet wide and let the legs drift over to the left, so that the legs come into the shape that's similar to a swastika, the shape of unity and peace, ancient in the Buddhist tradition. And we're going to turn to the left. And before you come down, I just want you to lean. So we're not turning the heart down, but leaning in a lateral way. So whatever support you might need. So again, I'm not trying to get to the prop. So you might try first without a prop. Notice where your body goes, and then fill the gap between your torso and the earth with whatever feels reasonable. Bolster, blankets, blocks, whatever you need. And then support your head. If it doesn't fit in your hand, maybe a stack of blocks topped by a pillow, whatever you need. And the slightest adjustment, right? This 1 degree, if you're charting a course and you change your course by 1 degree, it seems so insignificant in the moment. But as you travel over time, you realize that you wind up in a totally different place in the world. So whether you turn your heart a little further down toward the earth or a little further up toward the sky is going to change how and where you feel this in your body, how you address your fascia or connective tissue. So don't hesitate to make a few adjustments just to notice. And then the placement of the arm will also affect how and where you feel this. Can rest right on the body, come forward onto the prop, back behind you, or even overhead. So again, you might take a few moments, a couple of breaths to try one position and then another. Not looking for the highly sensational shape. A less sensational shape held for a longer period of time is more beneficial. So once you have identified the position of all of the body parts that's in your best interest, that shows you some healthy amount of stress and will sustain. So it's imperative that you commit to a shape at some point early on, right? Take your time to adjust and get all of your fidgeting and refining done. Identify your optimum shape and then commit. The target in our yin yoga practice is our connective tissue, fascia, ligament, tendon, joint capsule, bone. These tissues respond to time and pressure. So we put ourselves in a shape where we feel some amount of pressure, compression and traction, and then we sustain for a long period of time, 3 to 7 minutes typically. So if you're constantly fidgeting and adjusting, you're denying yourself 50% of the potential benefit of the long held pose. There are very few, if any, alignment principles or guidances offered in Yin Yoga because it doesn't matter what your body looks like. It only matters how you feel. This is really our opportunity to just let our body love what it loves. It's not about posing. It's not about alignment. It's about sensation. So as you identify your optimum shape and you settle in, you begin that process of committing, you stay with yourself. Using the breath as the tool to continually draw your attention back. Use the inhalation to spread the consciousness, scan the body. A deep inhale, the tension will increase. Resistance intensifies. Perhaps you can direct the breath right into that area of tension, creating some sense of spaciousness. And then every exhalation is an invitation to soften, relax, release, let go, yield, surrender to gravity. Doesn't really matter where you feel it, what you feel, the pressure or the stretch. It only matters that you feel it. There is no right or wrong way. You can get 3 bodies in the same shape, and they'll have 3 very different and unique experiences. This is all about you, what you feel, and what you need. You've made the commitment for this amount of time spent in self-care. You give yourself completely over to the practice of attending to yourself and your needs. Just a few more breaths here. Letting go. And there comes a point when the body informs you that it has released all that it's capable of releasing in this shape, in this moment. So it's at that point when you feel as though the body can no longer soften or let go, that you transition. But if the body is still unwinding, still softening, this is what we're here for. So stay with that. When you feel as though you are complete, very slowly, carefully, with sensitivity and awareness, release the shape and begin to turn your heart down toward the earth. So we add a little bit of a spiral to the spine. Adjusting your props, your supports, however it's reasonable for you. You can let the head hang. Nice traction for the back of the neck. If you have cervical stenosis or hypertension, uncontrolled, or if you have osteoporosis, then you're going to want to support the head. You could also support the chin so that there's a compression in the back of the neck and traction for the front of the neck. That can be really nice, a shape that we're not in very often. Well, we're in this shape often, but usually the muscles of the back of the neck are working. So to support yourself here so that those muscles can soften can be quite interesting. And again, not trying to get to the props, bring the props to you. So if you're using your hands to support the chin, you could also use your blocks or whatever is necessary, whatever's at hand. Be sure that you take the time at the beginning of the pose to find a perfectly comfortable, uncomfortable position. Only a healthy amount of stress in a shape that you can begin to soften into. A deeper twist or a lower pose, a higher pose, one isn't better or worse. They're all beneficial. Every variation on the shape will be beneficial. It's just necessary, most highly beneficial, for you to find the one that works for you so that your body can soften into the shape. Not so much stress that you're constantly holding, guarding. Enough stress that you feel it, so you can continue to soften with each exhalation, just a little bit. If the torso comes right down to the earth, prop isn't necessary, or a modest prop, you might try extending the right arm overhead, sliding the palm along the earth. Resting more toward the right ear or cheek. And then you get a nice turn, twist for the neck. There's any number of positions that you can put the neck in that will create a healthy amount of stress. You just have to identify which one feels best to you today. Some of the postures or shapes that we'll encounter today will repeat on the second side. So you'll have another opportunity to try to do something maybe different with your neck or your torso or your legs on the second side. It is not important that you do the same thing on both sides because we're not the same side to side. Can you do that? There's somewhere where you're holding on, gripping with the muscles. You might be able to let go. Perhaps imagining that the skeleton is creating a scaffolding to hold you upright from the bones with the props. And then you just hang from that scaffolding. If you notice that your mind has wandered away from the sensations of the body and breath, just gently guide your attention back. So there's a point in time when the shape goes from being beneficial, therapeutic, to becoming destructive. When the pressure and the stress on the tissues is healthy, and then when it becomes unhealthy. So to overstay can be can release the benefits of the shape, or reduce the benefits. To leave too early, when the body is in a state of tension, can carry that tension with you through the whole of your day. So as you notice the cycles and the fluctuations of sensation and resistance and release, wait for a moment of release, softening, surrendering, letting go. And then come out of the shape at that point. So the cycling may be very slow or very quick. You notice. And the next time that you feel as though you're in that cycle of releasing, relaxing, surrendering, then and only then, very slowly, with the strength of the arms, begin to release the shape. Again, with sensitivity, caution. And find a nice neutral shape where you can pause and receive the benefits of that long held pose, whatever that might look like for you. But let it be a little bit more balanced, left side to right side, and supportive. As the sensitivity, your level of sensitivity grows, you begin to feel the effects on the energy meridian, where energy flow is increased in certain parts and slowed or stemmed in other parts. But we notice. And when you feel you have rested in the neutral pose to a point where everything feels even and settled, then we'll begin to construct the shape on the second side, moving slowly. So we create that swastika shape with the right leg in front. So bringing all your props, if you don't know what we're going to need on the second side. So we've got the right leg in front, the left leg back behind, creating something of a swastika shape. You might find that you need some support underneath the right hip. But then begin to turn just a little bit. Turn, and then we're going to lean instead of turning. We'll come to the turning. And coming down maybe on your right forearm. You might even be able to come down onto your right shoulder. I don't know. You might find that some support for the head or the torso is more beneficial on this side. Again, the slightest adjustment of turning the heart down or up can change where and how you feel this. And the placement of the right arm will have everything to do with how and where you feel this. So you take your time, very deliberately adjusting the body. until you find the perfect spot on this side, which may look nothing like what you did on the first side. Doesn't matter. Refining and adjusting, aligning, supporting. Give yourself all the support that you need in order to soften, to continue to surrender the weight of the body to gravity. So the shape from one side to the next might look completely different, and it may look much the same. It may feel completely different, and it may feel much the same. One is not right or wrong or better. Take your time in creating the perfect shape for your body. And then begin that process of settling in and letting go. Notice what it feels like. Take a deep breath in. And what it feels like to let that breath go completely. Perhaps identifying the areas of compression, one bone drawn toward another. Or noticing the areas of traction, one bone drawn away from the other. Avoid any numbness or tingling, sharp or shooting pain. The good old-fashioned deep, dull ache, great. That's what we're after. Every exhalation is an invitation to do just a little less. Every inhalation, the potential to bring awareness and consciousness to a part of the body that was closed off. Those dark hallways and locked rooms that Dana Fogg speaks of in her poem. Shining a light on that knot of fear that is so deep and familiar.
Just a few more breaths here, noticing. And at some point, when you recognize that you're in the cycle of releasing, softening at any time now, and begin to release the shape. Again, you could stay in this shape for the remainder of your practice, and that would be a brilliant practice if this is what your body needs. As you very slowly and delicately release the shape with sensitivity, coming out just enough to turn your heart down to the earth, supporting yourself just right, so that you add a little bit of a turn to the spine. Nothing dramatic, just a little turn. Heart down toward the earth, a little more than it was in the previous shape. Supporting the head, forehead, chin, using your blocks or your arms, bolsters, blankets, pillows, whatever you have on hand. So many of us are in this position of contraction in the back of the neck throughout the course of the day. But we're using the muscles of the back of the neck when we're holding the head up that way. So to give yourself support in that shape, when we shorten the muscles, it stimulates a relaxation response through the proprioceptors. So you might find that that's really satisfying. Maybe you lift the chin only a little bit, and then maybe again you feel that that's not so comfortable, not so beneficial. So you want to support the forehead. One isn't right or wrong or better. It only depends on how you feel. But if you're not using the arms to support your upper body or your head, you might try sliding the left palm along the earth just to extend the arm a bit, but then relax it again completely. Whether it's down on the earth or on a blanket or a pillow, let the elbow come down. And again, taking the next few breaths to be sure that you have found the ideal, optimum shape for your body with all the support that you need. Not trying to get anywhere or accomplish anything, except find the shape that's just right, that puts your body in a healthy, stressful shape. So milder sensations of compression and traction. A less sensational pose held for a longer period of time is more beneficial than a highly sensational shape that can't be withheld. So then when you're in a shape that's highly sensational, chances are you're starting to drift into unhealthy stress. And then your body is guarding. And tension comes and doesn't go. So do less. Give yourself more support. And settle in. Then consider these words by Danna Fods. She's titled Everything I Think I'm Missing. She writes, I am struggling There's who I believe I ought to be and who I really am. Humbling, isn't it? This being, this mystery, this me sits here radiating energy, yet I'm gripped by a nameless fear that I'm missing exactly what I came to experience. I'm suffering, telling myself stories of what life should look like. And then I get the message like a meteor, like the power coming back on after hours in a storm. This life, this extraordinary imperfection, this moment, just as it is, this is all I'm here to receive. The infuriating, limitless simplicity of day-to-day living holds everything I think I'm missing. Take a deep breath in and sigh it out. Letting go again. And at any point now when the body informs you that you have stayed for the optimum amount of time, very delicately, with sensitivity and tremendous support, release the shape so slowly. The body is in a fragile state after a long held shape. Slowly releasing. And then once again, letting the legs come forward comfortably and find a nice neutral shape where you can just observe the body receiving the gifts of the previous shape. Tuning in to subtle sensations, subtle fluctuations of energy. And when you feel as though your body has absorbed all of the shift and change as a result of the previous held pose, then we'll begin to construct the next shape. Work into a series of the dragon shapes. So coming around onto hands and knees, finding the path of least resistance. Have all of your props on hand. If your knees are tender, please put a blanket underneath your knees. If your knees are really tender, then you can consider supporting the shin with a block so that the knee isn't making contact with anything. And we'll bring the right foot forward. So blocks, blankets, bolsters, whatever you have on hand. Bring it forward. And then slowly letting the torso rest on the right thigh as you shift the hips forward any amount. So the hands may be more comfortable resting on blocks, low height, mid height. But let the torso be down to begin with. The foot can be right underneath the knee, or you can have the foot back a bit. And this way you create a reasonable stress and stretch for the Achilles tendon, or the foot can be further forward. Again, alignment in the yin not so important except for the resulting sensation. And settle in. So you might find that the weight of the torso coming forward creates too much stress for the front of the left leg. So you might hold the leg with a block on an angle, or if you have a bolster, and a bolster there to support the thigh. Not trying to get to the prop, but bringing the prop to the place where you need some support to hold you so that you can let go. It's the absence of muscular effort that makes yin yoga yin yoga. You might find that you can rest your forearms on the block. You might let the head hang, or let the neck be a natural extension of the spine. Just watch that you're not creating too much tension in the back of the neck and using those muscles too much to hold your head up. So letting the head hang can be really nice unless you have osteoporosis or cervical stenosis. So maybe in one of those deer shapes, you were supporting the head in a flexion or extension, excuse me, in the extension shape. So now a flexion might feel really nice. But what do I know? You know what you feel. Maybe extension in this shape would also feel very nice. So you could support the chin in the hand again. It doesn't matter what you look like. It only matters how you feel. And again, knowing that we're going to hold this shape for several minutes, you want to find a less sensational shape that you can sustain and continue to soften, rather than a highly sensational shape that you're fighting against. No struggling. Is there anywhere where you're holding on that you can identify and let go even for a moment? Some subtle shift towards softening. Taking in with the muscles of the face and the jaw. Stay with yourself. And when you have noticed the body and the cycle of softening, releasing, yielding, surrendering, letting go, you slowly begin to lift the torso up any amount, very slowly. Again, noticing that 1 degree of shift can change everything. This doesn't have to be dramatic. In reality, your torso may come all the way up or just a little way. It doesn't matter. Just the slightest shift to target a different part of the body. You may find that you can come all the way up and the arms can relax by your sides or rest on your thigh. Maybe forearms or elbows. But watch if you're up and you're not using your hands, that you're not in a struggle to balance. So be sure that your posture is wide enough to be stable. So again, no need for muscular engagement to sustain the shape. If you come forward enough that you can rest the right buttock bone on a block or a block on top of a block even, that can help you to rest into the shape. And that's what we're after, resting into the shape. So as you adjust, no matter how small or grand the shift is, shift your support structure so that you feel completely supported and at ease. Going in again. So even the subtlest shift, we go through that whole transition again. And awareness and energy rising up. Heightened sense of awareness and alertness through the nervous system. And the gradual settling and softening into this shape. And there's any number of times that you go through that cycle, resisting, settling, and softening. Maybe one, maybe multiple, but you notice. You do less. You soften something somewhere. Again. When you feel complete in this shape, come to our third variation of the dragon shape, the winged dragon. There is no benefit to hurrying, no need. So very slowly releasing this shape with the intention of bringing both hands to the inside of the right foot. keeping your props on hand, easy to access. Might walk the right foot over to the right a bit. Support the left knee as you need to. In any amount, which might be none at all, let the left knee drift away, or the right knee, excuse me, drift away. So where you're bearing the weight, how you shift left or right will change where you feel this. One isn't right or wrong. But based on what you feel, find the place that's just right for you. And you may find that with some support, you might be able to walk the hands forward and come down maybe onto your left elbow on a block. The right elbow might need a higher support on a block. Doesn't matter. So you find the shape that's reasonable for you. Maybe the left elbow comes right to the earth, but the right elbow only needs support. Maybe the opposite, I don't know. You have to be the one to figure that out for yourself. Then the left hip can grow heavy. And so maybe the left hip needs some amount of support so that you can just relax right into it. Maybe having the hip hang is what makes it feel beneficial and therapeutic. Maybe keeping the hip a little bit more in line feels more beneficial to you. Maybe turning the back toes under and lifting the knee and supporting the thigh with a block feels good to you. Be creative. No limit to the number of options that one can come up with to support whatever shape feels just right. And you take your time, first minute or so, to adjust and shift, refine, and then commit. And again, the head can hang. You can support the head, maybe the forehead on a block. That's up to you based on how you feel. Maybe the chin on the block. One isn't right or wrong. The practice of yin yoga really encourages each one of us to go in, feel what we feel, and then respond to what you feel and support yourself. Finding a position of comfortable stress. So comfortable discomfort. Not too much. And then that process of once again settling down. So you may find at some point that you feel a little bit of a burning sensation. That's a quality of sensation that's associated with the fascia, the connective tissue. So you know you're affecting the fascia when you feel that. But you don't want it to be so intense that it causes clenching, holding, gripping. So it can be beneficial to some extent, but then detrimental. It's too intense, so you might need to give yourself a little more support if the burning sensation grows too strong to be tolerated. Next exhalation, notice if you can do less. Let go of something somewhere. You may only take the time for the next inhalation for that tension that you just let go of to return again. That's okay. And you let it go again. And again. That's the practice. And just a few more breaths here. In whatever shape you determined to be your optimum. When you decide you're ready to release, so slowly, great sensitivity, awareness, go gingerly. Pause on all fours, hands and knees. And take your time getting there. If you're more comfortable with the hips back toward the heels and child shape, then by all means, go there. But that, again, creates a deep flexion for the hips, so you might prefer to be on all fours. Doesn't matter. You find the shape that feels best to you, most neutral, so that you can bear witness to the shifts of energy in the body. The sensations of releasing long-held tension. And then at some point, when your body has softened into this shape, it takes about a minute. Might be more. Then and only then, bring your left foot forward. There is no benefit to trying to rush the cycle, to try to move more quickly than the body is ready. So calm the mind. Turn your honest attention to your body. And let the intelligence of the body guide you. When in doubt, stay longer, do less, and pause. But as you're ready to bring that left foot forward, find the path of least resistance, and beginning all over again, slowly, shifting and constructing a shape that is just right based on what you feel on this side. Keeping the torso low to begin with, supporting the back knee, supporting the hands. So no tension in the neck and arms. So if you're using the arms to support you, you really want to stack joints on top of joints. The placement of the left foot so that you feel reasonable stress in the ankle, the knee, the hip. Again, maybe the block at an angle to hold the right thigh from coming too far forward. Or your bolster, maybe supporting the left buttock bone on a block or a stack of blocks. A less sensational pose held for a longer period of time is more beneficial than a highly sensational shape that is difficult to tolerate. Highly sensational shape is an indicator of a tremendous amount of stress. We want a mild stress, a healthy stress on the tissues, on the body. Sometimes it's quite challenging for us to identify that because we're so accustomed to strong sensation and that unrelenting stress. So it's imperative that you take that first minute or so to give yourself support, to find the shape that's just right on this side, regardless of what it was on the other side. And then once you have identified your optimum shape, you begin that process of settling in and down once again. Turning your attention once more to the field of sensation that is your body. And perhaps identifying areas of tension and resistance. And finding a way to soften. And once again, in the words of Dana Fogg, life proceeds breath by breath, deep, full, and easy, shallow, or uneven. Breathing is the key to cultivating peace. Breath by breath, choose to stay present. It isn't success you're seeking, but surrender to the flow of energy. It's not control that matters, but letting go, allowing life exactly as it is this moment to touch and change and breathe through you. And if you feel as though a time comes when you would like to lift the torso up some amount, any amount, and slowly work your way toward that. You might find that it's in your best interest to stay right where you are. By all means, do that. The slightest shift, that 1 degree change, can be profound. These grand gestures and big movements may be unnecessary in the practice of yin yoga. Not to say that they're wrong, they're an option. But the slightest shift may be all that's needed to open up a whole world of sensation. Couple more breaths here. Unless you determine that this is the shape that your body needs to sustain for any amount of time, based on what you feel, and you're ready to shift, we'll come to the winged dragon. So both hands to the inside of the left foot. You may find that you need to adjust your props. It's okay. Walk the left foot to the left, perhaps. You might let the knee drift away. It may not go away. It's okay. Just slowly letting the body find its own shape, maybe coming onto forearms. Maybe not. Maybe coming onto blocks. One elbow may need a different height from the other elbow. Maybe letting the head hang, or supporting the forehead with a block, or the chin with the hands, the chin with the block, whatever it is. That subtle shift slightly over to the left or over to the right, forward or back. You might find that turning the toes of the right foot under and extending the right leg, but then supporting the thigh is just right. No right or wrong way, except to allow the body to feel unrelenting stress and unhealthy tension. So you have to be the one to identify what it feels like when you are in that spot that is just right. And you'll know, because there's a sense of ease, a sense of place and belonging. And trust your body. It's telling you the truth. It's telling you what it needs. You know all that you need to know. Trust. And then committing to the shape. Just a few more breaths. At any time now. When your body informs you that it has received all of the benefits, all of the softening, all of the healthy stress of this shape. And the support of the arms, very slowly, judiciously, delicately, with sensitivity, release the shape. It's more beneficial to stay longer until you are certain that the body is in a softening cycle. Coming once again onto all fours, or back into your child shape. So ultimately into the child shape, or lying on your back with the knees supported. Maybe the head would benefit from some support as well. Might feel comforting to cover yourself up with a blanket. And if you're fortunate enough to have an eye pillow, maybe an eye pillow, if you have a strap on hand, fold the strap and place it across your eyes. But you decide based on what you feel, what is the optimum shape for this final release and relaxation. Take your time. Move slowly and carefully. And give yourself all the support that you need in order to relax completely. Once again. Keeping your attention on the subtle sensations of the body. Noticing as you go through those cycles of resistance, acceptance, and surrender. And sustaining this relaxation shape for as long as your heart desires. The final shape of practice. And as you rest in the knowledge that you are deeply loved and completely supported by the earth. And stay as long as your heart desires. Namaste, my dear.